Everyone knows Justice Okoro, especially because of the role he played as the lead justice during the appeal of the presidential election petition brought by Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar. Not just that alone, he's a controversial figure. He also was among the Supreme Court justices that heard the Plateau State governorship appeal on Friday. During the judgment delivery, of course, the justices faulted the decision of the appeal court that sacked Plateau State PDP National Assembly and State Assembly members. Justice Okoro rounded up by saying, quote, "My only worry is that a lot of people have suffered as a result of the Court of Appeal's decision. It was absolutely wrong," unquote. While what Justice Okoro said is true, when did he realize the gravity of judicial banditry? Or is it because the miscarriage of justice affected many people? What about the judicial heist conducted by the same Supreme Court that Justice Okoro occupies in the cases of Godswill Akpabio and Ahmad Lawan? These men were not sponsored by their party. They didn't win the party primaries, but the Supreme Court put them there. The justices broke the law in order to put them there by force. Because they contested the presidential primaries, they weren't supposed to participate in 2 primaries in an election season. That's what the law says. But somehow, they conjured abracadabra to install them and make them senators. When the Supreme Court justices upheld Tinubu's electoral heist and certificate forgery, they didn't realize they were setting a very bad precedent. Now, it has become a free-for-all. Judicial officers are dishing out the unimaginable, the unthinkable, to the extent that one of the justices of the Court of Appeal had to address the issue in a public forum in Adamawa State. He was fighting with his conscience. They know that 5 justices cannot be superior to thousands, if not millions of people that voted for the Plateau State candidates they removed from office. They know what they are doing. They are turning justice on its head just for monetary gains. A candidate will score the majority of votes in an election. When the election is challenged in court, justices of the court will select the highest bidder as the winner of the election. This is very shameful. This is the biggest threat to our democracy. In fact, right now, it is a national security threat. Imagine what would have happened in Kano if they had overturned the victory of Abba Yusuf. The violence would have reached other states in the north. So people can now understand why the Supreme Court upheld Tinubu's electoral heist. Their motivation wasn't just about monetary gains alone or preserving the status quo. It was mainly because they felt it will finally give them the freedom to put justice for sale. Not that it wasn't for sale before, but it was a little bit hidden. Now they can conjure anything they want, justify any abracadabra without any consequence. Who will hold them accountable? Someone that came to power through the back door? The freedom judicial officers enjoy also extends to appointing and promoting their relatives to many courts in Nigeria, even if such positions are not justified because of conflict of interest. They don't care. No one will call them to order. The reality in Nigeria right now is that politicians don't need to waste their time campaigning to win election, because they know that the people no longer decide who wins the election. The courts do, and they are willing to do the unimaginable to return the highest bidder as the winner of an election. Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who is a foremost human rights activist, explains where and how the Nigerian judiciary got it wrong, and the precedent they set at the time, that it is the reason we are where we are today. Let's take a listen.
Citizens need to be interested in this stuff. And you see, the problem always was the tendency to reduce this to a party political issue, which it wasn't. Look, this matter didn't start today. When the judgment in Amechi's case came down in December 2007, the Supreme Court gave its reasons in January 2008, but the judgment came down in December 2007, saying that someone who was never on the ballot had been elected governor of Rivers State, PDP was exultant. But that judgment is actually why we are where we are today. It was the beginning, close to the beginning of our problems. Because, yes, there needed to be a remedy to the madness that was going on then. But whether that remedy had to be putting someone on the seat who had never been on the ballot to begin with was a different matter. The Supreme Court could easily have decided in that case, okay, we will nullify the elections. We will recognize Amechi as the candidate of the PDP, but we will send this back to the people to decide. Was that not possible? Of course it was. But they chose not to do that. And therefore, expropriated to judges a decision that only citizens should make in a democracy, deciding who rules them and deciding on whom to confer the mandate. And what did the Supreme Court say in that case? Candidates don't make a difference. Parties do. Candidates don't run in Nigerian elections. Parties do. Which really was untrue. And I know for a fact that a lot of judges at very senior levels then had nothing to do with politics, but a lot of judges were very unsettled by that judgment. But it came from the Supreme Court, and therefore they had to comply with it. That set us off on the route to where we are today. Now, by the time you had done with the corrections of PDP overreach when it was in power, what you then were left with was judges had grabbed the rights of the citizens and decided it was too sweet to let go, because candidates were discovering that you didn't need to know anybody. You didn't. Senator Ibeke in Anambra North went to the National Assembly 3 times. He never won any election. Alphonse Ibeke was never interested in winning an election. What he did was, after the elections, he would go and buy judges, quite literally. 3 times Ibeke went to the National Assembly over 12 years without a vote in his favor. Anyone who is from Anambra State here knows Alphonse Ibeke's story. But he's not the only person. Why? Because judges now decide our elections. And so once politicians realized this, they started planting their wives and their daughters and their mistresses. I mean, I could go on here about whose mistress is which in which place. And obviously the wives we know. But it is the mistresses that are very interesting. And who is sleeping with whom, and, genitally transporting people whom they are related with into the judicial system. Because you need your own judges there to have these decisions take place. And then we get to 2019, right? We're in Zamfara State. So, because this is not, I want to make it clear, this is not APC. I'm not interested in APC, PDP, Yabo. It is that the ground rules have been totally altered. And that means you cannot take away, you cannot beat an incumbent because they will outmoney you. When the Supreme Court decided that you could have the idea of wasted votes, guys, and you see, people sit down and we laugh over these things. How can you waste the votes of citizens in a democracy? That is the biggest problem we have now. That judges are wasting the votes of citizens. In Zamfara State, Matawale lost every local government area in Zamfara State. He didn't win half. And judges actually sat down and thought it was a very nice idea that because of a pre-election matter, you could waste the votes of an entire state. That was another evolution in this process. And so the doctrine of wasted votes came in, and now judges are wasting the votes of people. Kano is a scandal. Kano is an absolute scandal. And you don't have to be a supporter of any party to recognize that Kano is a ridiculous scandal. It is. And now, look at the map of what is happening, guys, so that you understand. Every one of us needs to understand that The judiciary has become a national security threat.